All right, we are officially live for the next broadcast of what Larry Bond affectionately called the Dawn Patrol because of our early Saturday nature. I'm going to adopt that. I do want to welcome Kevin Martell, developer of Simplot, recently releasing version 2.1, which is awesome, and we'll go through it. We'll probably go through it step by step a little bit and show it off. I also have Javi Bueno, is that correct?
Yeah.
And you are located in Spain, correct, Javi? Or
No, I am from Spain, but I'm currently living in the UK.
that's
So
right. Thank you.
moved here
I
years
told
ago
Kevin
to
I didn't want to put my
study.
foot in my mouth, but I did, of course.
Yeah.
um, okay, very good. Um, so Kevin, just tell me a little bit of history, just a short bit of the development over the years. It is it a Java SDK based application or?
No, it was originally in Visual Basic
Oh wow.
version 1. Later on, when they started to do version 2, it's Zojo. Um, you might remember it as Real Basic. Real
Wow.
Basic became what's now Zojo.
Okay.
And the whole IDE, very Visual Studio like, and
Okay.
also cross platform.
Interesting. I've never programmed in it. Okay, so I did not know that. I was incorrect about that. I thought it was Java. Um, you had hinted a little bit in our conversations in email about potentially going towards or supporting a Python scripting or something to that degree. I can't remember what.
I had thought about wanting to do it in Python just so that you can get around things like Apple Gatekeeper and any other security features because you're not sending out an executable file, you're sending out the equivalent of source files that
Oh,
people
okay.
then run through Python interpreter.
Right. Right. Exactly. Also, Python might allow for maybe even third-party modules, right, to be potentially added. Maybe. Yeah. Let's see. So just as far as your relationship with the game itself, how long have you played it, and which version did you start with, and
I started Harpoon 3 in 1986, shortly after it came out. That was also when Red Storm Rising came out. From
very good.
1986 to 1988, I was in the U.S. Air Force, stationed at RAF Lakenheath. I was a paved tack technician on the F-111s.
Oh wow.
And when Red Storm Rising came out, we were all very excited because mention was made in the book about the F-111 bombings with paved tack systems, and the description of it all was actually quite accurate.
Very good.
So we were all very happy about that. And then I picked up Harpoon and started playing it since then. And
was that the GDW version of it? I can't
yes.
remember. Yeah. Okay. Very good. And that was the full boxed version. Throughout that time period, they were released as box sets, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So when did you first? I don't know the entire history of Simplot. I've only kind of just jumped into Harpoon in the last half year. So when was your first version of it, and did you basically just use it for yourself for a certain period of time, and then people caught on that you had this little tool and wanted it for their own use?
Somewhere around 2014 to 2015 is when I developed the very first version, and as a test, it was just for myself. And the basic premise was, I don't want to lay out miniatures on the table for the cats to knock over or whatever, and I don't want to have to use graph paper because you're always erasing things and rewriting things. So I thought, this could be done with simple graphics as well. It's all the same thing. A graphic screen is essentially graph paper.
Right. At the time, I mean, I'm assuming you're a programmer by trade as well, but I always like to have pet projects too. Did you at least originally consider this kind of like your pet project to kind of play around with graphics? Or
I'm not a programmer by trade.
Oh, you're not? Okay.
I've just been doing it for a very long time as a hobby.
Oh wow.
I've been doing it since TRS-80 Model 1. That was junior high school for me.
Yeah, I remember our neighborhood. It was funny when around that time period, the neighborhood usually had the first kid with a TSR, right? So then all the other kids would go to that person's house, and of course D&D was played as well, right? So
right.
So yeah, they went hand in hand for some reason. Very cool, very good.
But as far as the applicability to others, it wasn't until I had been a fan of the Harp Gamer website, which had some Harpoon paper rule support in addition to the computer Harpoon products. And I'd asked Tony Eikens whether or not he'd be interested in allowing me to upload this program for others to use. And at that time, it was just a single player program. Shortly after that, of course, people inquired about how can we make this a multiplayer. So I put some thought into it, and that's when I developed the idea of shareable turn files for a PBEM like game.
Right. I honestly think that probably alone has made the tool or product immeasurably useful. I don't think I could. I absolutely will give it credit for allowing me to learn the rules in a timely manner pretty quickly. I feel like if I was on my own with a piece of paper, I may have given up, honestly, right? Just it was my first foray into modern, so just having that tool alone made it so much better visually and looking at ranges and then manipulating ranges. So thank you for it in general. Javi, you have any questions up to this based on what you already?
Yeah. I just wanted to ask about the multiplayer thing. Is there ever an idea or a thought of maybe making it a real-time, given some kind of real-time multiplayer function? Or is that kind of like too complicated and sort of outside the scope?
In a sense, yes. Think of it like instead of sharing turn files, you might have a referee who will push the new turn data to a remote computer. It would still be turn-based simply because Harpoon is turn-based.
Yeah.
But it would effectively be a real-time update without necessarily having to do anything on your end as the player.
Basically, play by.
Yeah, so like the referee could, sort of changes something, and then that changes on everybody else's screen simultaneously without having to kind of send them the file immediately, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I believe I can do that as far as a closed network goes, only because the Zojo projects in the examples folder that they provide show me how to do that. But how to do it through something like Discord is something I don't know yet.
Could you perhaps do it through, maybe set it up so you can do it through a closed network and then use a third-party app to simulate the closed network, like a Hamachi or something, where you can simulate that LAN connection?
Yeah, that's something I haven't delved into very much, but I do.
But your intention there, Javi, or the way you envision that is absolute real time. I think probably the first step towards that, and I think Kevin, you even hinted at this in emails at one point or another, was supporting half turns, right? Supporting red or blue being able to submit orders to a server. I don't know if it needs to be a centralized one that can basically bring the two together, or it may very well just still be a file base. But I think literally the step one of that would be individual red and blue JSONs that were generated from an original start file, then being able to be mergeable. And I think you a true PBEM format of it where each side cannot see the other side unless the judge flags it such in the file. But
yeah, you haven't, I don't think, played it full PBEM, if I'm not mistaken. You're using screenshots for the players.
Well, each side, I've had some that you probably just haven't even seen because they've been private channels, but we've been doing play by post where I will post the red or the blue JSON to those teams. So the teams tend to enjoy pulling down the JSON and by the minutia of milliseconds figure out how to increase their probability of kill. So that's kind of fun watching that. But yeah, I mean, we use the red and blue JSONs. I usually do a screenshot. Now real time, we've been kind of doing more of a co-judged real time format where we just do it right. Yeah. 2.1 has been beautiful for that because it allows the waypoint pre-planning. I can't even thank you enough for that. That alone makes 2.1 incredible. It should be 3.0. Where was I getting at there? But so But maybe there is a mechanism I'm unaware of. Then there isn't a way to combine red and blue. Like, you can't have an individual team edit the red or blue and send it back and merge it, right? There's no.
No, they don't send anything back to you except through the Waypoint orders. At present, that's the only thing that's.
Maybe I'll have you show that. So
the only thing that's relevant is it's the only thing your player can do is to tell you where they want the.
Okay, yeah, sure.
You doing it for them.
Yeah, and I think you hinted at one point or another when I was talking to you in email that you were considering doing a half order system of some form, right? Where somebody could manipulate the red or the blue JSON, and then you could import that as basically the next turn. But we didn't get any further into that conversation, but it's just something for the future, potentially. I don't know, Kevin, do you want to share your screen and just run through Guardian a little? Maybe the Guardian scenario. I don't know if you have that around or if you were working on a different scenario. Maybe the bug, whichever scenario you want to look at. Do we want to just go menu item by menu item and just kind of show people what's there? And maybe they're unaware of certain things.
Actually, what I have is the most recent Saki up. I don't know if you wanted to share that though.
No, everybody, each side knows what's going on in that, so that's fine. Go ahead and you can pull that up if you want.
So I just click the share button.
I think it's just share, and then you can either do this. You can do your desktop if you want. Just be careful whatever else you got. But or you can do the window. I think you can select Simplot. We'll see if this works. If it doesn't, that worked. And then just add it to the stream. There you go.
All right. Yeah, okay, so here is the latest version of Sake on the Rocks. I've changed your colors a little bit, though. It says shallows here. I changed them to black. So let's see how we can do that. Now, under File, New Scenario should be in Load Scenario, self-explanatory. Saving the scenario, this is for mostly the referee, and save player settings is mostly for players because there's a special file that gets saved. Any changes to range circles or other such display attributes like your zoom, your pan, will be reflected in your player settings file so that nobody else gets bothered by it.
Interesting. That I did. I had questions about that, so you cleared that up. Okay.
Yeah, it used to be the very early version of Simplot. Only the referee could create range circles, so there had to be a discussion about what circles you wanted to see. But then I separated it so that the referee has his own circles and players will have their own so that they can see what they want to see. Although initially, when you get a file from the referee, it'll have all the range circles built into the units. And it becomes a copy for you, and then you could change it after that without anything else being affected by it.
Very good. So, continue, because I have a question about import orders and export, but go ahead.
Update current scenario is for players. The import the special file there. It's technically a JSON file, but it's slightly encrypted so that nobody can dig into it. And then that will actually import all the information without re-importing or reloading the map file, which was a part of what took so long when you were trying to update it for players. Okay, import move orders. You had a question about this one?
Well, I didn't. I haven't touched this at all. I haven't touched the export or the import. So just maybe go a little slower on this one because for my uptake's sake. So
the referee will see import move orders.
Okay, interesting. So if a player on the red side has the red JSON, they can export move orders, and that will basically create a file specifically to those unit designators with new waypoints. Like, so they, even if they had existing waypoints, if they delete them all, add 3 or 4, they can export the move orders and then supply that JSON. What is the resulting file of that, and who needs what?
each individual player can export move orders, and it brings up a window so that the player will select which of those units are under his control. And the order in which they get loaded is depending on the referee's import. Anyway, so let's say the red player then has 3 ships. Let's say it's these 3 here. He'll select those in the window where it will show that's his control, and then those waypoints will be exported to a JSON file that he'll name.
My moves,
a
whatever.
unique name, so that when you, as the referee, go to import it, you'll know who it came from.
Interesting. I have not used this. Have you played with that at all, Javi? I have not. Can you demonstrate that with one of those units by any chance? Can you?
Well, this right here is the referee file. So what I can probably do, let me quit this scenario. You still able to see my?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. All right, let's go with the red. Here's what's what I call the Simplot Scenario. So it's SPSCN. It does not show up as a JSON because it's, I call it slightly encrypted, and I don't want anyone to figure it out.
Okay.
So let's.
So just rename it. I'm just kidding. Oh,
so this
wow.
is the right side right here.
Okay.
Now, if I wanted to export, let's see what we got over here.
Yeah, you have those. Let's just say you are a player in control of that task group, if we call it that.
So file, export move orders. And this is where we select which units are under your control. Let's just take the first.
Yeah, that's fine.
And add unit. Add unit. See, it takes them off the list here as it goes up to the top. So let's just say the first 3 ones are under your control.
Mm-hmm.
Push OK. Oh, wait a minute. Could not save unit orders. Why can't it save it? Oh, that didn't work. It keeps track of this also, which units were yours.
Oh, and this you give it a unique.
There's a possibility that because I'm not on this computer as a
admin.
As an admin. Well,
I mean, the other possibility is this scenario was created with a slightly earlier patched version. I don't know if that's giving you problems at all.
Oh, that might be. This is a generic window that comes up in lieu of crashing the program.
I mean, do you want to? Can you bring up your Guardian scenario and maybe do it fresh from a start? You know what I'm saying? Like, I definitely want to see this working. Because I didn't even know it could do this. Perfect. Okay, so let's see if we can.
Let's just say rest.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Control.
It could be something that maybe was introduced in a recent version. It's okay. We can move on to other functionality if you want.
Check to make sure it is in fact. Yeah, it did not save the file at all. Well, yeah, this is a generic warning that for some reason it was not able to save it. But you were able to make it work during Sake.
I was not using this method during that. We were just real time updating the waypoints as needed because in effect we were just co-judging Sake. We did pre-planning. We did a pre-planning session for each team prior. So we're basically doing a fake double blind. We double blinded our pre-planning for like an hour or two worth of plotting, and then we're just manually judging together. in real time.
Hmm.
So I was not using this functionality. We can move back to Saki and start talking about other things if you want. Yeah. So so that's an interesting thing. This might even be a layout from. So in other words, when you've opened up, and I've not. Oh, there it goes. It finally painted. I noticed in like previous versions that if you opened up one of the reds or the blues, that it would kind of reset your viewing of names. Like in other words, like if you opened up a red JSON and then went back to your main file, it would, because you were kind of like in a generalized format or something like that, it would basically, you would no longer see the names here. You would see the target numbers. So I'm glad that was, it seems to be remedied in 2.1. So if you want to just continue down, yeah.
Well, if that had worked, then as the referee, you would just import move orders after the players had sent them to you through some means, and then
that would just flat out,
everything.
it would just basically overwrite the waypoints, right?
Yes,
That's the only functionality, but that's very cool. I've not played with that. Maybe me and Javi, we can kind of do like a fake scenario and kind of
just
test that out.
Yeah, that sounds really nice.
Yeah.
I'll take a close look at why that did not work. Anyway, so save map screenshot. This will be just for the entire map window, including the scale bar if it's visible, and it saves it as a PNG file. And of course, quit scenario, which does not quit the program, just simply eliminates all the scenario data and exit the entire application. It also saves in 2.1 the window size and position. Then he was used to reopen with a small window. That was always annoying. Customize controls. This one here, use mouse scroll wheel to change map zoom scale. I had to add this because on my MacBook Pro, I have there's no mouse. I have just the touchpad.
Right.
And it kept zooming in and out wildly. So you can uncheck this box if you have a similar experience, and then just use the plus and minus keys or the map zoom control down here. Arrow key map scroll value. It'll every click of the arrow key will move it up, down, left, and right by that many pixels. This is something I added because I was trying to take screenshots for use in the SitRep magazine, and I wanted to make things more perfectly aligned. But you might find it helpful as well if you want a big zoom or a scroll, or do you want
right.
a scroll?
Depends on the scale of your map, honestly, right? So yeah.
Exactly. Color options. This is also something I know you've been wanting desperately.
That means I begged for this.
Yeah, you get all the different kinds of colors. Some of these are not yet implemented. The overlay colors, for example, this comes from the Naval Implementation Guide for Common Warfighting Symbology. So these are the standard colors that would be for polyline, polygon overlays and whatnot. So that's not yet implemented.
Ooh.
But everything else.
The ability to literally just write to like write or draw on it. I know that's probably asking a lot, just sometime in the future. The ability to just add little markings and then get rid of them.
Yes.
Yeah, reference points helps a lot, but okay, I'll shut up.
And then also highly requested to be able to change the waypoint colors. So right now they default to whatever side they are attached to, which I know is very helpful depending on the background color.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And you could save this as a palette. So we'd save all of these default these colors here and all these tags, or you can load. I'll show you some of the. Let's see. I think I included them. Yeah, the default colors, the grayscale, and the Naval SitRep magazine colors. This won't change much because your background is a bitmap background.
Right.
But all the sitrep images I produced were based on polygons rather than the
Right.
bitmap. I'll just let's see if it doesn't
Yeah, it just
change
kind of.
with some of these colors right here. So it's a quick and easy way to, if you want to save something.
I honestly didn't even notice it, and now I love it because I'm going to have very specific, probably color scheme map styles, like depending on the background, literally, but depending on whatever image I've used as a background. That's brilliant.
Also, I've had people say that in this color chooser, they've had the program crash. They tell me that if they try to double click a color, which I can't even get to work, so I'm not able to replicate it, that it'll crash. So I recommend just single click it, push the OK button, and everything should be
And
fine.
wait a little bit in case it's drawing. Yeah.
And also the reset button.
Yep. That's very good too.
Display options. Here's a couple things I think you probably were not quite aware of. If you want different CWS symbols, I've got the filled. There's also the unfilled. Many naval displays I've seen online use unfilled symbols, but the background would have to be a little better than that. The mono is what I use for publication printing. And of course, the old style computer Harpoon does not render the helicopters correctly, though. Symbol size just simply changes the size of this is a symbol. And you go all the way down to dots. This comes out of the Navy implementation guide as well, so that if you wanted to have like the big picture of things, you would just have dots on there. So something like that. Or reduce size. It eliminates the middle icon, but you get a general idea of what's out there in terms of what's called the domain. So that's a surface unit, an air unit. And starting with default, it brings back in the icon. This is actually something meant for large size displays, such as a ship captain might be looking at. Symbol scale. This is if your screen is hard to read, you just change the symbol scale. It makes everything bigger, including the size of the text and if there's any polylines in the map. This is also for big screen.
If you're using an old projector that puts you back down to 1024 or something, or even 800. Yeah, it's very good.
Well, even with my my regular computer, it's a 27-inch monitor, and I find I have to use the 1.5 to make things readable. There's just so small a pixel size, you know. Unit of distance. If you let's see, I know that some things like visibility are in yards or kiluyards, or some kind of weapons are in yards as well. So if you click a unit and you want to shift click the distance, it's giving you yards down here in the distance. So that'd be 15K yards or 15.5K yards.
That's going to be really, really good for command at sea and anything before that.
Yeah, as soon as the big guns start firing in sake,
yeah,
which they probably will today. So, yeah, we'll see.
And also, if you do the bearing range thing, it'll be in yards. Or you could have it as nautical miles or in meters. So whatever the application you need at the moment, you've got the different units that instead of trying to convert from one to the other. The depth labels apply to the upcoming map standard of using polygons to show depths. And these labels here, you know, whatever it is the map represents, shallow, intermediate, 1, 2, 3, etc.
Did your bug out scenario have examples of that? We can maybe look at it later. Is that
the bug out map does have the depths underneath it.
Yeah. Okay.
It just wasn't used in the scenario, but it's in the map.
That would have been very helpful for our pining in the fjords scenario, where we had like a cliff of convergence zone blockage. Yeah. Okay.
And this last checkbox is for players of a multiplayer game, you have the option to always show your side as friendly, which is technically what blue icons represent.
Oh, didn't know
Even the
that.
original computer Harpoon did that. If you loaded up a Soviet side, your side was the blue, because technically that's all the blue really represents.
Right. Right.
So that's the
Not your.
only. It would only affect the players. It would not affect the referee. To the
Right.
referee, it's still blue side, red side. But eventually, I would like to migrate away from that and to more of a nationality side. So you might have U.S. and Britain on one side, and whatever other people on another side.
Yeah.
Very small flags or something.
Yeah. How hard would it be to add sort of like a just sort of like an additional yellow side or green side or something like that? If you were playing some kind of coalition game where you're friendlies, but you perhaps don't share all the intelligence.
Yeah, because the problem right now is all in code, so it's going to take a lot of code changes. But I think the whole concept is fairly simple: is that you have a side, it would just name the side, and then subsequently assign whatever nationalities are to that side,
Mm-hmm.
and then you perception would have to change as well, because if
Right. That's where you start to have
data links, you would have to. The U.S. may not necessarily know where the British are.
right.
And even in the modern symbology sets, there is such a thing called presumed friend and presumed hostile. And these things mean, just like that, you don't have data link with your other people, but you think that's who they are.
Or presumed French fishermen.
Actually sailing.
Okay, units. Probably all familiar with how to add new units.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything new around the land form? I definitely noticed a lot more on the land side. Is there anything unique about how the land formations or is there anything unique about those two units at all that we should know?
Land formations are very generic at this time.
Okay.
I offer just either blank formation, infantry, or armor.
Yeah. It is very helpful, by the way.
Where'd it go? Oh, there it is, right here. You can see where it's at.
No, I just didn't know if they moved differently or anything weird. Anything. You can still plot them, correct?
Yes, and they will move as well. You can give them movement. They're very, very slow, obviously. But
Right. It's probably 2 to 4 knots at most. Equivalent. On a really sunny day, maybe 1 knot.
Yeah.
That's the Biloxi Blues.
And vehicles as well, because I wanted to be able to put in things like radar and SAM sites, so that you could have, even if these vehicles aren't movable, they're singular vehicles, and you know what they are versus an entire installation. I thought it was just a little catchy, cool thing.
Mm-hmm.
So the SSM site there, they all have their own little icons. The radar sites are, I think they're in bug out too.
When we get to the import-export, I did have a couple things to ask.
Okay, import and export. What do you want to know?
So the one thing about this that I don't know if this might even be considered for a setting potentially. I would love to be able to import it with the side intact and the name/class setting configuration intact. I don't know if that's a personal preference or not. Javi, what has your experience been on importing? Like, I just feel like it's an extra step to go ahead and put it to a side and to name it. I'd almost like, if I intended to bring in a ship at a certain time or something like that, I would love to be able to import it and it be entirely intact and not have to change the side and the name.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think it depends on what you want to do. Like, yeah, if you're describing that situation, we just kind of want to bring it in, that would probably be ideal.
Right. So, I mean, it could even be a setting where it could even be a customized setting to say you want to keep it intact or not. Maybe even just keep it that generic, keep it that simple. But it's easy enough to change and import it. And back to your original point, Kevin, about red and blue, you don't necessarily, a Kloss destroyer or whatever, or a cruiser, it could be red or blue. You don't know. So.
Well, one thing I did change though is for air units, I do allow it to take upon the property of the unit that you've already selected.
Oh, okay.
So let's say this destroyer is going to fire a missile. I don't think I have the units right here. I'm trying to bring my other computer up so I can move the units over to this computer, but it's not cooperating with me for some reason. I'm having a bad computer day, I think. Anyway,
so let's just
so if you had a missile unit that was already built, and you select the unit, you do the unit's import unit, it'll take upon the side of the unit you've already selected.
Okay.
And
yes, I think I saw that by accident. So you're saying if you're going to import, you have to select the unit that it's kind of associated with, or at least a unit on the side. I thought I saw that. Do you have any units that you could just import real quick? Just even if it's just well, we could even export one and then re-import one, right? So maybe that'll be helpful to people anyway. Like if you just took like one of the patrol boats and or missile boats and exported it and then re-imported it. Maybe you can just show me that.
This is what I'm looking for right here. Okay, I think that's what I'm looking for. Go back to desktop. No, that's not what I wanted. Hold on a second. I use my Raspberry Pi to as a go-between with all my computers. I think I found the units. Actually, yeah. Okay, copy units. Okay, let's see if that works. Now, let's say I want to import a missile. This is sort of like my master units file that I build things a little bit at a time. Let's see if I do actually, this is the correct one. Okay. All right, let's say P-15M we're going to fire. And there it is right on top of it. Okay, now it is red, whereas normally it would have been neutral.
And that's only working for air units, is that correct?
Just air units, because the presumption is that if you're launching a missile or an aircraft or a helicopter,
right, it's always
going to be that side.
Definitely that side. Okay. All right. Perfect.
And the reason for all other units not being that way is because, some years ago I ran the Red Star in the Gulf scenarios where we had Iran versus the Soviets. Now, in a case like that, who's red and who's blue? So, you could also have NATO countries that still use some MiG-29s. So, is that red or blue?
Right. Yeah, I found that. Yeah, if I'm having to import several, or because we do use kind of like a pre-planning format for our Saturday morning games, we might just have a class of the ship built, and I need to import like 5 or 6 or more, like in particular for like the bug out scenario, there was a lot of them, right? And that's the only time where it became a little bit cumbersome. But what I found is that if you want to just quickly import them, you just quickly import them, import, and then change them. It seemed to be a little more intrinsically quicker.
Also, there's for the units that I built, the missiles have their own radar seeker ranges.
Very good. Maybe if you put the labels on it, are they labeled?
They are. I'll show you the sensors tab. Here's the
Yep.
Just general seeker for large, medium, and all these other ones here.
There was one question that John Newth asked in the YouTube, limits the number of units or number of sensors and weapons. I thought I'd pull that question in as appropriate. Are there any limits to the total number of units that you can use in the scenario? I wouldn't.
One other thing before I forget,
Mhm.
because we've had trouble with units that are stacked on each other.
Yeah.
Unfortunately in Zojo, a right click and a left click are essentially the same thing. The only difference is a right click brings up a context menu, but it also fires the left click event. So you're constantly, it could be difficult to get to that missile underneath it. So we
Right. I've always
keep clicking.
I have to train my brain. We were in a very unique situation for that. I don't think I've ever seen that many multiple salvos going off at once. It was a very unique situation. I meant to reply to you in email and say that was probably more of a unique situation.
Okay, here's the sensors and weapons are essentially the same things. They're just ranges and arcs, just for two different things. I just realized I named them differently here. Oh well. Anyway, so this right here is a scroll bar, and theoretically, there should be no limit to how many you can add. It just keeps scrolling all the way down. If you can see how that scroll bar is moving.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got probably 50, 60 of them now. I don't see why there should be a limit unless this particular control, which is a text box, has any.
Maybe
each row is an array.
So maybe you have 65,350, whatever the integer limit. So we hope at much that hopefully it's not a small or whatever. I can't even remember the size of that. But yeah. So John, I hope that answered your question. Also, he had a couple other questions. Let me see. This was a good question too. Will there be a new reference or instructions for creating maps? I think you had hinted at that with me, and maybe in about 5 minutes or so, we can, if you might show us the tools that you've been using to do the XYs of all the tracing and all that, maybe just very, very lightly. And then I think you had hinted that we might do a taped tutorial or something of how to do that with open source tools.
I'm actually next going to be working on a map making program. It'll do it all for you. But right now, you find a background map wherever you can, whether it's Google Maps or whatnot. I bring it into Paint Shop Pro. I actually ended up taking slices of it, screenshots, and putting them all together into one image. Then I'm using something else called, what the heck was it called? Affinity Designer. And then because Affinity will allow me to draw polygons and export those polygons as it's kind of like as a JSON file, but I have to convert it from their version, which is what's the term for use in web pages? Scalable graphics.
Mm-hmm. SVG
files. So it creates SVG files, but those are based on the 0, of the upper left corner. And so using the scale of the map, I have a special little standalone program that converts it to Simplot graphics. And I want to put all that into one application.
Right.
So that all you have to do is supply your underlying image through whatever means that you create it. And then from there, you can start tracing things and adding graphics.
Interesting. So you see that as kind of like an updated polygon as you click, like So if you were like, for example, if you were trying to do that for this background image, you envision this tool bringing up the image, and then you just kind of click around it.
Yes. In fact, creating the Waypoint system gave me the inspiration for doing it. It'll be effectively the same thing.
Okay.
Is there anything about waypoints?
I think waypoints are pretty self-explanatory. I don't know if you want to just at least show them, like click on one and and just kind of show them what it looks like. And maybe we can talk just very quickly about if you have a unit that you want to come to 0 at the end of it, you have to make a waypoint just slightly beyond it and set it to 0, because if you put the final waypoint as a 0 and expecting it to go to it and stop, it's not going to. It's going to stop at the previous waypoint. I think that's the only thing people might need to kind of know.
Yeah, the premise to it is that the distance describes the length of that leg. The course is the course you follow to get to that waypoint, which is right here. The speed that you have on that leg. So that's why when you did 0, it stopped before the leg started. And then the estimated arrival time at the waypoint. That kind of went back and forth about whether or not I wanted the waypoints to describe what's going to happen when you get there, or describe how to get there. And so I decided on this system because it was compatible with the visual. So you see where if I left click and drag that.
Oh, I didn't even know you could do that.
It changed the distance and the course. You could also say if you want to make that an even 7 nautical miles. Okay, now it made that 7 nautical miles. Let's say you want it to be exactly 225 degrees. If you type it, it's actually moving everything. So 22.5. So I know it's now back on 225 here. And you can set the speed. The speed was supposed to be for the leg. Later on, I wanted to implement acceleration, deceleration, so that the speed represents what you want to be at by the time you get to the reference point.
And then it would actually calculate how much to increase by. That's very interesting. I
want to add the ability to have acceleration, deceleration values, but they may have to be somewhat generic, because I don't want to go through the whole spiel of size classes.
I think it would probably be more beneficial with Command at C or
Dawn of Battleship. One thing I did also modify, though, is and I'm going to have to try and modify it again. It's going to have to be for let's take this missile as an example. Let's give it a waypoint. It's also changing the the direction of the.
Yeah, that's very nice.
So it'll go. Let's make it less than a tactical turn's distance. So let's say if it were an aircraft and that's where the base was, and you wanted it to land. Let's make it. Let's do the movement now. So everything moves. And when it reaches that waypoint, it's going to pop up a little window. Now, do you want it just to continue, or do you want it to delete? Now, an airplane that lands is effectively a deleted unit. But one thing I did not consider is having a unit just simply stop. For air units, they don't, unless you are at a cap point or something like that, I suppose. So
right. I mean, I got around it just by adding a single small waypoint right beyond the base. It's simple.
And there we go. The delete unit's gone. Movement continues until I think it's done now. There we go.
I did not even know it would do that, by the way. And so I'm very happy to talk to you about this, because there were some little things there that I didn't know you could do. Also, was I correct in seeing that you can actually click on the waypoint square and it will select that waypoint, and you can drag it at that point? Because I don't think I've done that before. I knew you could select it in the waypoint.
Yeah, you can select it either here or here.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I didn't know you could do that. Very good. Either that or I wasn't zoomed in enough to click properly or something, but very good. Let me, we're getting towards the top of the hour. I wanted to just at least offer to get a couple of these other John questions up here. Hold on a second. Here's a more recent one from him. Does the number of units affect the speed of loading old Simplot used to load real slow? Okay, this is a good question, because we had talked about this, about the file size getting pretty extreme over time. I don't know if you want to talk about how you're saving the files now.
Yeah, the version 2.0, it was a consideration more for turn replay, where every single turn was effectively encapsulated as its own JSON object and then put into an array of other ones. And so as the game progresses, you get more and more information, especially in terms of movement, building up into the same file. So it became longer and longer to load. Plus, if you had a map, it was trying to reload the map. So 2.1, if you are in a multiplayer game and you use update current scenario, when the referee sends you the file, it will not reload the map. But also the file structure is such that it's no longer an agglomeration of turns. It's just the individual units, and those sizes will increase as they move because there's more movement points to keep track of. Also, each perception is its own object, and over time, those get saved as well, so that during turn replay, you can always have the correct perception at the correct time. But the file sizes are greatly reduced. I think this file you sent me was only 88 kilobytes or something like that.
Right. I don't know how many turns we've actually had, but it was definitely considerably smaller. We did get into missile mode, if you will, for a little bit at least. So that's when the turns started adding up in some of our previous pining for the fjords scenarios and so forth.
Everything should work a lot faster right now.
Yeah, it absolutely does.
But 2.1 will not be compatible with 2.0 original files.
There are a few questions here about, I'm going to bring these up quickly. And so here's one from John. Regarding maps, is it possible to use PDF maps instead of JPEG as a basis? I don't know how you're going to do that, but.
Well, I think if you, a PDF, you mean like a map embedded in a PDF document? Because I think you can extract the map from the PDF. I think by default it's PNG because they're just a higher quality.
Right.
I used to use JPEGs before, but
I think Adobe kind of forces you to use a certain resolution, right? Or at least helps you enact it. Let's see. Another one is there a format for unit creation as would be faster to create units in Word? I mean, you could technically open it up in like a Notepad++ or another good text file and probably create those exported units. In other words, the exported unit format is pretty simple to understand, right? I mean, if somebody wanted to, like,
well, what I do when I want to create units, I just simply open up a new scenario, just a blank scenario, and plop units on the screen and then export them.
Right.
And then fill out the boxes and such,
Right, exactly. So that hopefully that answers your question, John. You can reply in the YouTube channel there. Let's see if we've gotten all. I think we have gotten most of the questions. So I did have a question about, and I just haven't seen its use, is what is the times used for? I don't know.
Here?
Yeah. Oh, movement track times. Okay.
They are related to.
Okay, that's
movement tracks. Really
interesting. Oh, so it actually it will show you what increments you had used as well throughout.
Yes. Yep.
Very
here's
good.
where you went for 30 seconds.
Yeah, that could be very useful. And so as far as, and I haven't really experimented with this too heavily, but as far as undoing movement, is there any newness to that? Because I remember in the previous version in 2.0, what we found could be slightly a roadblock is if you're in like a missile mode or anything like that, and you need to back yourself up more than one turn. I'm assuming you still cannot do that. I'm assuming it's still undo is only one, right? Or can you? Oh,
That's you have to undo the movement and then the turn.
okay, but oh wow, so you can do that now.
Yeah, you just have to kind of click.
Oh wow, okay, that's beautiful.
This one's gonna get screwed up because the waypoints we moved around.
Right. We messed around with it. But so in other words, if you didn't mess around with it, and oh wow, that's powerful. I didn't even know you could do that. Did you know you could do that, Javi?
No, I wasn't sure.
Okay. All right. Good. See, I'm just pulling him under the bus with me.
Also, one more thing is that there's some rudimentary help files available under the help directory.
Yeah.
Just a couple of things here to get started creating, modifying.
I just noticed that by accident. I know you had sent me, like, there were originally, I think, text files, right? And then these are really nice. Very good.
These are HTML files. They are in your resources directory help files folder. So
hold
if you
on,
want to modify
idea.
them yourself.
Oh, you can add your own HTML scenario.
You can modify the ones that are there now, but the program only recognizes whichever ones were created at the time it was. It
would be kind of interesting. It would kind of be interesting to have like a scenario one, just one. I know you don't want to support 50,000 of them, but it would be kind of interesting to have like a scenario summary one where if you give this out to people, then all the scenario information is kind of available as an HTML file. That'd be kind of interesting, but whatever. Again, millions of ideas. So we're getting towards the top of the hour. Javi, do you have anything else you wanted to ask?
No, I mean, other than are you like, are we can we expect you to join us on a game one of these days?
I think I would like to very much do that. I've just been really busy lately because I've got a lot of overtime at work, and I'm in the transportation industry, so we're flooded.
So I showed you this before, but I don't think I've shown the audience. But I've been playing around. I'm going to just show them my Falklands map real quick. Let's see if I can. Hold on a second. The one thing about this is, which is annoying, is you have to have the window up in order to share it properly. Okay, so here's. I was kind of explaining this before. Was that I've got this plotted out as task groups, right? And what I thought was just really cool, and I don't know if people have seen this in action yet. Let me put a air unit here. It's just so interesting to see this in action here, but seeing the faster units next to the slower units is really very interesting to me. I don't know if I got this right. But what I kind of wanted to show here is that you can do task group movements and then pull in units relative to the task group. What am I trying to do here? Waypoints. Just kind of think these are all like 460 is its main cruise. I don't know what I did there. Okay, here we go. Let's try to go sync the Hermes real quick. But what's so nice is the ability to, and you kind of showed it before, but I don't know if we highlighted it, is that all these task groups will move, and then the etendards will go quickly. But this, oh wait, why is he going so slow? That doesn't seem right, does it? I had this working, it was really cool looking before. Did I not put it? Huh. Is it me, or did that seem slow?
Well, for a 30-minute turn, it would only take 30 seconds. It's a very large area.
You're right. Sorry, but what's really cool is, as you can see,
actually, if you bring up the waypoint screen again, if you click pause, maybe. See, I'm not sure if you can bring up the waypoint screen. You might have to cancel the movement.
Oh, you're saying that I can...
What's the times up there for arrival time at each waypoint?
Yeah, 1417, 1436. So if am I able to do this while that's going? Yeah. All right.
You're flying a couple of 100 miles at least.
Right, exactly. Maybe I'm just over impatient. Well, there you go. Yeah. I'm the impatient Argentine commander. But this is just so beautiful. Sorry, I just felt like showing this off. But what's so cool is also that all these are repainted, right? As well. I think I've seen that. Just these ranges are printed in real time as well, from what I can see.
They move with the units. Is that what you mean?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, the entire movement system is actually a 1-second increment. So even when you're using instant movement, it'll go through as fast as the processor can handle it and move all the units by 1-second increments up to the turn interval.
So I remember a previous version had a 100 by, etc. Is there a reason we went back to more of a 3 base or a 6 base? You went back to more of a second base. I just seem to remember we had like 100 by at one point.
Oh, right. Yeah, I was. The problem was that in order to create it as what I would call the smooth movement system, all it was doing was just running the program faster through a timer to make everything work the same code, but just faster intervals. The problem is, as I found out in Zojo, the fastest timer object I can get is about 15 milliseconds, which is approximately 60x. So even though I had 100x in there, it wasn't really doing 100x.
Cool. All right,
but even at 60x, it's essentially 1 game minute equaling 1 real second.
Right. All right. Any other questions, Hobby, before we...
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, is there any plans to set up a Patreon or anything like that, or to monetize Simplot in any way? Because I know this curfew folks be more than happy to kind of send some money your way, because this is honestly a fantastic piece of kit.
No plans to monetize. To be perfectly honest, I never thought anyone would want to give money for it anyway. But actually, because of Simplot, I have kind of opened up doors with the Admiralty Trilogy group, Larry Marcus, Carlson, etc. And through all of my efforts with Simplot, and especially in Origins 2019, where I helped Larry run the systems test, which was a Dance of the Vampires scenario using my MacBook with Simplot, He was very impressed with it all and asked me to become a member of the team. So I am a primary reviewer for all the things that come through the pipeline, and I actually do collect a small royalty from it, just like the others do. So, manner of speaking, Simplot's making me a little bit of money.
Yeah, fair enough.
All right. Well, we need to go do our second part of sake on the rocks. So I hate to cut us short, but we did go over it a little bit. I'd love to do this again at some point. I'm sure just in using it over the next weeks and so forth. So if you're up for it, I'd love to do another one of these, maybe in a concentrated effort if we have something that we're kind of working on improving or not. But I do appreciate Kevin, your time. And absolutely, the tool itself is brilliant. It helped me learn the rules, and I'm sure it's helping others adopt and learn the rules and appreciate them even more. Right. So thank you, and we will talk again at some point, hopefully.
Yeah, this was fun. I'll do it again.
All right. Take care.
Bye.